Hi.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good everything. How are you, Nerida?
I'm good, thank you. And how are you today?
All right. Welcome to the one-on-one Women in Food and Packaging. Would you like to give a brief introduction on yourself?
I am the Executive Director of the Australian Institute of Packaging, which is the peak professional body for packaging training and education in Australasia, which is actually Australia, New Zealand, and parts of Asia. And then I have a second hat, and that is the Vice President for Sustainability and Safe Food for the World Packaging Organization.
So this is where you are right now. How did you get started in this whole packaging world?
Wow, it's funny because I was working in public relations and communications in another nonprofit organization, and I wanted to try and see what company life would be like and corporate life would be like. So I actually took a new role with a brand new flexographic labeling company. It was like the first flexographic labeling company here in Australia. And I was their public relations and communications manager. And then fell in love with the industry, and 23 years later I'm still here. So yeah, it was an interesting transition, that's for sure.
So you came from a non-profit. Which organization was that?
It was actually the Scouts. So some countries call
Scout.
it the Boy Scouts. Some countries have girls and boys. In Australia, we have girls and boys, and it was actually Scouts. So I did the public relations for the state for Queensland, which was about 30,000 members, and it was really fun. It was a great job.
What is Scout Street?
To be prepared. I'd be in trouble. I would be in trouble if I didn't know that, because both of my parents are heavily involved in scouting, so they would yell at me if I didn't know that.
Oh, that's awesome. So you came from non-profit then into private organizations. Now you're, what would you call AIP and WPO?
I would say I'm back where I believe I belong, which is non-profit. So the AIP is classified as a non-profit educational institute, and the World Packaging Organization is an educational institute. So I think my home is with nonprofits and with volunteer-based associations, which provide significant benefit to the industries that they're in, which is really wonderful to be a part of.
Nice. So what do you consider at what point in this 20 odd years that you've been in this working environment that you find that yourself being succeeded
To
in
be
success? Sorry,
successful,
success. Yeah, successful. Sorry. Thank you.
it's a good question, because I've always been happy with my role, whatever role I've been in, because I've always looked at the outcomes that I can achieve in that role. So I've never really been a person that's interested in titles. I don't believe that titles are what are important. I believe it's what you give in your role. So I've always been happy for myself and what I've achieved. Yes, I have had a number of changes in the industry, and I have a senior role in the industry, and I have a management role now. But I don't believe my success is because I have been promoted. I believe my success is in what I give in my role, if that makes sense.
So from your current position of the AIP and the WPO, um, what is your view on your both organization but on your own role are able to contribute to the food, beverage, packaging side of the industries?
Mm. I think because I do work for educational institutes, I have the advantage that I can see all the amazing good work that's happening in the industry, and we can contribute, I can contribute, and the people that are in the AIP and WPO can contribute to a better industry. We have the ability, I'm very blessed to have the ability to help people, to help young people, to help guide young people, to watch them succeed, to encourage them to be, to better themselves, to give them the support that they need to go up the ladder. And it's a good feeling to be able to help other people that need to be trained and educated and watch them blossom. I think that's one of my favorite things in the industry, is to watch people climb the ladder, be successful, be happy, and do really well. I think that's a measure of success.
That's a teacher plus NGO volunteer side of mindset completely.
It is, and I think that people need to understand that most of the associations that are tied to the industries are traditionally volunteer-based associations. So people that work within the World Packaging Organization or the educational team in the AIP, they're all volunteers. They don't do this for money. They do this because they want to give back. They want to contribute to the industry. And it's amazing how much people put back into the industry that they love and how happy they are to contribute. I think it's a good thing to be a part of.
And I'm fortunate to be able to sitting here, working with many strong and influential organizations, associations, such as yourself in the WPO, from both global, regional perspectives. So, what is the latest in packaging?
The latest in packaging is all about sustainability, and I think it's the favorite topic at the moment. So it's certainly a very, very busy time for anyone that's involved in packaging. We need to be more sustainable, we need to be more circular, and we also need to look at our environmental impacts that we're introducing through packaging. Food waste is another major area, because packaging has a significant role to play in minimizing food waste. There's a lot happening in sustainable packaging design all the way around the world, and it's really exciting. Actually, it's really exciting to see how dynamic the industry is. It's changed so much from when I first started in the industry, not just in terms of females in the industry, but also how dynamic it is and how it's just changing at such a fast pace at the moment.
You mentioned female in the industry, and we'll touch on that in a bit. But also you mentioned how it has changed in the last 10, 20 years. How has it changed in the last 10, 20 years?
Well, when packaging technologists and designers were traditionally designing packaging, there was no consideration, or the majority of the time there was no consideration or requirement for them to design for recovery or recyclability. So because now consumers are driving and they're pushing back on brands and they're pushing back on manufacturers and demanding that they have more sustainable packaging, the whole mindset of the industry has had to change. So the way that people were designing packaging has to stop. And we in a process at the moment of everyone rethinking the way that they design to ensure that it offers the lowest environmental impact possible. So I think it's been an extremely positive outcome that consumers have pushed back on the brands and manufacturers, because it's allowed packaging designers to stop and redesign their packaging in a better way that's more environmentally friendly, that offers a lower environmental impact, and it makes them think about the whole end of life and circular design, where they didn't have to think about that 20 years ago.
Are we going to reach the absolute circular or closed loop, or how close do you think we'll get to, and how long do you think we will take?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer. I think we are making significant changes, significant improvements in the world of packaging. We globally, the technologies and innovations and material changes are remarkably fast and innovative, and there is a lot happening. But the only way that I think that we can achieve a circular economy is that we must collaborate locally across the entire supply chain, and then also regionally, and then also globally. So everybody has different challenges, as you know. Every country has different challenges with recovery and recyclability and sustainability. We need more funding from governments. We need more government support around the world. We need more infrastructure, more technologies. We need to be encouraging and funding innovation and technology and research in this so that we can achieve what we want to achieve, which is a circular economy.
Yeah, the way I see it, and I'm sure that a lot of people see this, there's so many variables within the circular economy, from the governmental restriction policies to funding, like you mentioned, to producers, manufacturers' responsibilities, to consumer responsibilities, but also the society as a whole, and the technologies to catch up to it. That becomes also what the price tag is going to be in that particular product based on that particular packaging. And that could be the driving, sometimes could be the driving force behind the circular economy.
I think that we have to get past cost as the only decision maker. You and I are both consumers, so we both have we can make the decision on what we purchase. We can make the decision to purchase something that might be a couple of cents more expensive because it's more sustainable. If we truly believe as human beings around the world that we want a circular economy, we want to lower our environmental impact as a human, then we need to pay a little bit more sometimes and support what people are doing, if in effect, with their innovation and design. And I think that's the challenge at the moment is, you know, a lot of families will always buy on price because they've got a big family and they're trying to look for the value in what they're buying. But if they truly believe in sustainability, then they do need to support it by buying the products that are more sustainable.
Yeah, and also like the demographic of that particular economy as well. Like if you walk around, whether it's any country that doesn't have the infrastructure to support circular economy or waste separation, but if within that building it's got different types of trash cans around, of course you're gonna follow that. So it can be like the herd mentality as well. So the way I see it, if more people are doing it, you're gonna want to do it, whether by a peer pressure, or you find that people are doing it because they know that it's a good thing, and you follow that it's a good thing. So I hope that we will get there someday. I hope that the driving force behind it, whether it's the major corporations that are creating the demand, or whether the SMEs who are able to reach the different types of packaging with the new technologies, with the new materials coming out, and lowering the cost, and hope that the infrastructure will be able to help and put the packaging as a closed loop across at least the region. We're not talking about US, Australia, or Japan. I'm talking about Southeast Asia, and we still do for the case in Thailand. We still do have that difficulties in household waste management, waste separation, trash collection. So
Yeah, but Thailand is doing some really good work there. They've started to look at single-use plastic regulations. You know, they're not selling a lot of this SUP in store anymore, which is really good to see. And I think that, you know, developing countries and underdeveloped countries have far more challenges, obviously. But littering doesn't have to happen anywhere, because that's a behavioural issue. Collection obviously is an issue in countries that are developing, but there are certain things that you can do as a consumer to do the best that you can in the situation that you're living in. And obviously it is far more challenging for your country than mine.
Totally agree. So we're going to shift gear a little bit onto the main topic of the day, which is the women in food and packaging. Do you find the both gender, for the lack of better word, gender bias in the past 20 years has changed or has developed in the better side of more gender equality, whether male, female, or, you know, third, fourth, fifth LGBTQ center side of genders? Do you find it better?
So when I first started in the industry, one of the first trade shows that I went to, I was asked to wear a short skirt and high heel shoes on the exhibition stand. And with my personality, I was extremely shocked at the comment by a manager and asked them why that was needed. And they said, because you're there to bring the people to our exhibition stand because you're attractive. And in that moment, I thought, what industry have I got myself into? Because this is extremely sexist and not acceptable behavior to me. But I also stood up for myself that day and said, I will wear what I feel is suitable for me. And I also have intelligence that I bring to this exhibition. So it was a very difficult time because I was a lot younger. I was a very impressionable young person coming into a really good job that was high paying. And it was quite a difficult time because I had to adjust. So the first trade show that I went to, and I wore pants, by the way, I was the only female, one of the only females in that trade show that worked in the industry that wasn't paid to do public relations, to stand on the stand and catch people. And I still remember it vividly, like it was yesterday, because it was so male dominated. But since then, I have realized that was by trade. So 25, 30, 40 years ago, most of the people that designed packaging here were men. There's just a fact. So industrial designers, packaging engineers, packaging technologists were inevitably men. And I have seen the industry go from that to half of the industry's females, half of the people that are designing packaging are females, and the females in the industry now, they don't have the same issues that I had 23 years ago, because it has completely changed, and it's really fabulous to see.
The majority, actually almost more than half of the packaging associations and academics and the people that myself as a manager, project manager, deal with are women nowadays.
They are absolutely.
And that's a good thing to see in the industry, that as a technical, as scientific, and there's a lot of women out there who are scientists who are very, very influential, and that's a really good thing to see.
Yeah, and we did a lot of research quite a few years ago, and we found that men come out of industrial design, science and engineering degrees, and the women in the industry traditionally come out of two areas. They come out of either food science and food technology, so they come out of that area. So there are very smart women that are scientists and chemists coming through into the industry, or they come out of marketing, public relations, communication type roles. But the food science and food technology women that have come into the industry are now being retrained as packaging designers and technologists, and they're taking over the world of the packaging industry all over the world, and it's fantastic. I love it.
And that is why we see, that could also be why we see a lot of changes in the packaging industry today. Actually,
I agree with that. I think that we have to have a balance. We have to have a balance between a male and a female approach, and we all think differently, and we bring different skill sets to the table. We all bring different offerings to the table, and I think the industry has changed, and it has changed for the better, and I don't believe it's as difficult now for the women as it was 25, 30, 40 years ago.
and that's also a strange thing, because I remember 20, 30 years ago, more than 60% of the teachers or professors that myself had in my era were women.
Mm.
And that's, we're supposed to be, and I believe in many regions and countries as well, both professors, whether from PhD, masters, and their specialties are women, and the way I see it, women have that wiring to be teachers, to be nurturing, to be explaining stuff, to make people understand the way they see, and for them, for the students or the followers to be able to follow their teachings.
Mm. I think one thing I should add though, Mark, is even though I experienced one person that had a negative view of women, I haven't actually experienced that very much at all in my 23 years. I have had some amazing mentors and more senior men in the industry that have been my mentors that have never looked down at me or judged me because I'm female. I've been very fortunate that I haven't. They've respected my knowledge and experience and expertise and what I bring to the table. So I haven't really dealt with too much other than that issue. I haven't really seen that occasionally, but not very often.
That's a common theme that I have found during this sort of interview with this, how one presents themselves, how one's appears, but also the demeanor and behavior, but also the choice of words, the tone of speech, that is able to bring anyone, whether their age or their education or their backgrounds, up to the the levels where, and to the people that we're communicating with and communicating to, able to communicate that their ideas without their appearance or their physical being there to be judged or to be prejudged.
Mm, mm. And I think that you learn it with time and age, but you have to have the confidence in your own ability and your own skills and experience. And if you can come to the table with confidence, then it helps you. I'm lucky, I've always had confidence, so that's okay. So I've never had that issue. But there are a lot of women in the industry that still struggle to find their voice. They still struggle to be heard. And I think that's why it's really important for them to have other women in the industry that they can lean on and talk to and have as mentors that can guide them through how to speak to men versus how to speak to women, because there is a different way that you speak to men versus women. And I think that's a really important thing that you're talking about, bias. Training in unconscious bias and training in how to interact with everybody in the industry and be inclusive and diverse is really important to be successful.
So that's completely true, because it's sometimes it's assimilation as well. We tend to speak the the type of or the style of the person who we speak. That creates rapport, and that helps with the communication. So if you could tell yourself as a younger version of yourself 25 years ago, if you could tell that person, if you could tell her today, what would you say?
To have more confidence in myself and my capabilities and what I brought to the table. It took me a long time to be really confident in who I am and what I offer the industry, and not to be afraid that, if I don't have a packaging engineering degree or a chemical engineering degree, to not be intimidated by that, and not to be intimidated by those around me that have different degrees from me. I was reminded a long time ago that I bring degrees to the table as well. So I just had to remind myself of that a long time ago, that I came to the industry with 3 degrees. They were just different degrees from chemists and scientists and technologists and designers, and I was bringing different expertise to the industry. So I would tell me to be more confident in what I bring to the table.
What did you study?
Oh gosh, that's a whole nother conversation. But I started by studying a double major in Japanese interpreting, and I went on to 2 degrees, postgraduate degrees in public relations and communications. But my original life was actually speaking Japanese and being a Japanese interpreter. So it was completely different from where I am now.
What to be able to do in like multi-language interpretation, that has you have to have a different wiring inside of your brain, right? That's like communication, language skills, real time, simultaneous interpretation. That has got it's the artistic side of the brain.
It really is. So then you can understand why me coming in with my skills was very different for this industry, because they all tend to be scientists and engineers and chemicals. So their brain is completely different from me. But I think again now people realize I just think differently from a lot of them, and so I bring different ideas to the table which can assist them.
And what you do day by day also influences what you are as a true self as well, right? Because we have to assimilate, but also to be able to present ourselves in the industries that we're in. Myself, I'm not in exhibition. I have not been studying that side. But what about how you're able to acquire knowledge? There are different ways of acquiring knowledge for the day-to-day tasks that we do, whether from going to class, reaching out for courses, or reading, also talking to experts, but also our own teach by ourselves, go and read research papers, newspapers, those kind of things. What are your ways of doing it, and what would you recommend?
Well, I love reading. One of my favorite things in the world to do is just get books and sit there by the pool and read. So I have no trouble reading textbooks and articles and science reports and journals and things. I really enjoy reading, so I have that advantage. But for me, well, reading is absolutely critical. Everybody has to read. You have to keep up to date with what's happening in the industry, particularly now because it's moving so fast. So if you're not reading and you're not keeping up to date, then you're going to get lost in all of the new information that's happening. The other thing is to have really good mentors, to have really, really good support people that can encourage you to learn more. When I first came into the industry, I had no knowledge of the fundamentals of packaging. I had no knowledge of the science behind packaging. And for quite a few years, I didn't have the confidence to learn it. Now I attend every single training course that the AIP runs at least once as a participant. So I come into the training and I'm there like everybody else learning. So I have found that attending all the training has been really, really good for my knowledge. And my knowledge now is just so much more than it used to be 15 years ago. And having support mentors that I can talk to and ask what I think are silly questions, or, you know, questions that I'd be embarrassed to ask other people publicly, they're there to answer them for me and help me understand the science of packaging in a way that they know I can understand. So I've been really, really lucky that I've got, and you know, a lot of my mentors, that I'm really lucky I'm surrounded by good men that help guide me so that I can learn more about the technology of packaging.
So be confident and also try to enjoy reading.
And find a mentor.
Fundamental.
And I would really encourage people to find a female mentor and a male mentor, because they are different. But finding someone that you can, that's your support, that will help you through your career and support you. And you have to cheer people on, Mark. You have to support people. It's so important to help have a buddy system. There's people above you that are going to help you, and then you have a responsibility to help the next generation that comes into the industry. So most people that come into this industry don't leave this industry. They tend to stay here forever. So it's really important to have a mentor program and a buddy system that's there to support everybody.
Do you have philosophy you go by at work?
For myself, or for the way I run the association, or
For yourself, like the professional side of you. Do you have a philosophy that you go by?
my main philosophy is to be nice to people, to be kind to people, to treat people the way that you want to be treated. And I know that sounds cliche, but it really is about that. And you know, the more kindness you put out in the world, the more that you get back. And I believe that to be true. I really do. And I think that if you are honest and you are kind and you have fun, that's really important to me as well, to find the laughter in life, and sometimes just to have fun and have a good laugh. And you know, you don't have to be serious all the time. You can still have fun and still do an exceptional job. And I think sometimes you just got to find the good in life, and just treat people like you want to be treated. That to me is the most important thing.
So that's the professional side of you. What about your personal side of you?
My personal side is to have more fun, and to try to surround myself with people that can be happy and positive, and to have fun and relax and unwind. And life just can't be that serious all the time. So I think that you've got to surround yourself with people that are like-minded. And I'm lucky my family and my friends are they're like me, so it's good.
So what are your viewpoints on this statement? Don't work harder, work smarter.
Sometimes it's hard to work smarter because it depends how much work you have. And I think the problem nowadays is that most people are doing more than one person's role. So unfortunately, I think globally it's the same, that, you know, where 30 years ago someone might have been doing a one-person role, most of us are doing 1.5 to 2 people's roles. So it's very hard to work smarter when you're overworked or under-resourced. So planning, deadlines, writing lots of sticky notes, writing lots of lists on what you've got to achieve every week, that's the only way I survive. Everything in email, everything in writing, everything in a list. I have lists and sticky notes everywhere just to make sure that you can keep planning for next week and the week after. That's how I work. It works for me, but I have to do a list at the end of every week in readiness for the week after, because I find that helps me to plan for the next week.
That could also be the way that you motivate oneself, like to have a list of things to do the next week, and then hey, you know that you got all these things to do, but at the end of the week you check those off, so that you have the motivation, but also the feeling of accomplishment to have those tasks achieved.
Yeah, I sometimes don't get everything done on my list, and sometimes my lists carry over, as we all do. But it's really good at the end of the week to have a look at the list and say, okay, well, I didn't get to that, but so that's got to be a priority next week, or another priority might push a task down, so you have to reprioritize your work. But I also have a mantra that it's one thing at a time. So when you're overwhelmed and you're stressed about something, one thing at a time. So a lot of people just look at their lists and feel really overwhelmed with it and think, there's no way I'm going to achieve all this. Just stop, take a breath, one thing at a time. So
That's a really good point. That's really hitting myself, hitting me right there, for the task that we'll have in the coming weeks. Anyway, besides the point, what is the things that we can look forward to from AIP and WPO?
Oh, well, from the AIP, we really can't wait for the day that we can physically get back into Asia, particularly so that we can keep training and educating everyone in Asia. We obviously were starting to come into Asia before COVID, and it's quite sad that we're not there, because we found it was doing really well. So we're really looking forward to coming back, particularly to Thailand. I'm really looking forward to coming back to Thailand, and we all are, to do more work there, and the Philippines as well. And then for the WPO, there's a lot of things happening. There is hopefully going to be a global sustainable guideline coming out soon. There are a lot of global projects. There are projects around food waste. We want to do more in terms of packaging's role in minimising food waste, and a lot more around sustainable design as well. So it's quite exciting to take on that role, because there's a lot of work to be undertaken in that role moving forward.
That sounds like a lot of things for us to look forward to, and myself as well. I'll be interested to see that the global sustainable guideline.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, yeah. Any word of advice that would you like to give to everyone, but also to women, if you want to be specific?
If I was to give it to the females in the industry, have the confidence in your skills, find a mentor, find somebody that you can have a buddy system with, and read some more. And you just never stop learning. That's the most important thing, is none of us should ever stop learning, particularly in this industry, because it's so ever changing.
Right, great. Nerida, thank you for joining us today. It was a very good session. Myself, I'm learning more about you, having known you for some time now, but also there's something new with everyone I talk to every time, and it's always good to see the different side of the people that if each of us see, or myself have been dealing with all this time, and also in the long future to come. And hopefully I'll see you in person soon.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I'm really looking forward to that day that we can all start traveling and getting back together in person. So I can't wait for that day.
Right, great. Nerida, thank you.
Thank you.